Thanks so much for tuning into Talking Point. I'm your host, Neerterm. The Talking Point today are the views of Mr. Dharmender Kapoor. He's MD and CEO of Birlasoft. And while we didn't get a chance to talk to him post his numbers, I think it's an important juncture considering all that's happening on the geopolitical front and the commodity cost front around the world. And the fact that this is also pertinent time. ISG came out with their findings. There are Accenture numbers slated to come out later today. So lots happening within that space, and we are on the cusp of. I mean, we are 1 month away from the Q4 numbers as well, and the annual numbers too. Mr. Kapoor, great having you. Thanks for joining in. Hope all is safe.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Neeraj. Great to speak to you again.
Yeah, likewise, and it's great to see you in the backdrop of what I presume is your office. I'm guessing it's
That's
now
right.
virtually a full strength almost every single day, if you will, give or take.
I would not say full strength, but many people have started to come back to office. And as I was saying before, that it is good to see smile on their face when they're back in the office.
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, I think we feel the same as well when we go to office. Mr. Kapoor, let's talk about a slightly near term, and then I want to talk about a slightly longer term as well. The very near term, um, while most people agree that IT services is probably the most insulated pocket from any commodity price inflation, and rightly so, there was a fear or belief that what could happen to client budgets as a result of the spiraling costs of commodities and operations and supply disruptions might have some bit of bearing on their ability to spend on tech and otherwise, and that might have an impact on how IT services bag revenue clients over the course of the next couple of quarters. Is there a merit to this argument at all?
So I will take it little differently, Neeraj. In my opinion, this is the time again to invest in technology, because for a long time we have focused on how can technology help companies reduce costs. But right now, every company is looking at the differentiation. And when they are looking at the differentiation, the objective is how do you go and invest to get the differentiation? Because everyone is running through the digitalization. And in the last 2 years of pandemic, people have seen that those companies who had adopted digital, those companies who had moved to the cloud earlier, those companies who had transformed their technology setup before the other people, they were running on their feet faster than the others. And I think that has made other people think that they need to invest in technology, because it is no more a matter of, can I be ahead of the others? While that definitely is the question in their mind, but it has also become a matter of survival. So when it becomes a matter of survival, that becomes necessity for every business to start thinking, how do they go and spend in the technology side? And that is the reason that while all that is going around us, the technology is not really impacted. And most of the companies are really increasing their spend on the technology side.
Yeah, there was this whole ISG note as well, where a webinar was organized by some brokerages in India with Information Services Group to talk about this, and they mentioned that they don't see downside risk to tech spending forecast, maybe some trickle down impact, but the one factor that they saw, which I would love to understand from you, is that they believe that there'll be supply side issues which could get tighter in the near term as enterprises will look to diversify their exposure away from Eastern Europe. Any thoughts on this?
So this is real. The supply side issue is real, and it is because that there is a much higher demand than before. Okay, and it is not because there is something wrong with the supply that is there. It is just because that the demand has come sudden post-pandemic, and that is the reason that we are seeing that the number of engineers that we have, or the talent that we have, is not sufficient to cater to that demand. So that is what we have to continue to look at, that when the demand is there, it is always a good news, because the bottleneck will definitely shift from one place to another place during this time. If earlier the bottleneck was on the demand side, right now it has moved into the supply side. But I'm sure that there are multiple ways through which we will address it. There is an impact on the short term, yes, but I'm sure that in probably a quarter or so, it will start getting softened, and we will see that the colleges and the other training institutes and many other methods to develop the talent has already started taking shape. And probably in another couple of quarters, I think there will be a surge of new talent that will start hitting the market.
Hmm. No, but specifically to this point about Eastern Europe being a factor, is there a factor at all like that?
To the Birlasoft, I have not seen any impact whatsoever. Okay, and I believe that this was one place which was emerging on the supply side. And I believe that the global supply would have taken a little bit of hit because of that. Okay. But whether that has an impact on the IT industry on India side, no, I don't think so that there is any impact. There might be negligible impact to some of the companies who had some presence there or who had their clients there. But I think that all is manageable in my opinion. However, we have to look at on the long term that this was another hub that was coming up as a supply side. Now, when that is not there, how do we really come out with the alternative channels through which we can actually develop the supply on the talent side?
Got it. Mr. Kapoor, I don't want any information around specific numbers, etc., but just wondering, because quarter 4 has been, how do I say, marred with a bunch of developments that have happened, including the Omicron wave in January, and now on the global front, the geopolitical stress that has started to come up as well, and of course, equity market fluctuations of another magnitude.
Yeah.
Has quarter 4 on the business side thus far looked normal, or has it been disrupted in some sense?
I would say that there are a couple of things that definitely matter. One is the Omicron that happened, okay, and because of which, there was a sudden, spurt of people going sick, okay. So there might be some impact because of that. That is there, okay. And then the supply side of the challenges that is continuing to happen. Third, if you look at carefully, while this is a full-blown quarter, the number of working days actually are going to be probably a couple of days lesser than even the Q4. Okay, so I believe that there will be a minor impact because of that will happen. But will it make people worry about the growth? No, I don't think so. The growth will be there, and I don't think that anyone should really worry about that.
Okay. Now, what about Birlasoft? Now, when I spoke to you at the end of quarter 2, I believe the TCV then was lower because cloud deals were getting smaller and they were for shorter duration and they were coming in multiple sprints. But in less than 3 months, I saw that the TCV numbers didn't look all that sketchy. They looked actually pretty strong at the end of quarter 3, if I'm not wrong. So
Correct.
Are things moving very rapidly on a quarter-to-quarter basis, and therefore is it difficult to forecast what would happen even 2 quarters out, Mr. Kapoor?
Absolutely. See, earlier what used to happen was that there were a lot of renewals that used to happen and a lot of long-term contracts that used to happen. And because of that, it was easier to determine as to what is in the flight when it comes to the pipeline. But as there are more and more newer digital deals, these deals are smaller in nature. Okay, they happen quick, and at the same time, there is a need of urgency from the client side. And many times we start discussing with the client, and within 1 month we are able to close the deal. Now that deal may not be $100 million deal, that may just be a $5 or $10 million deal. But then it is the multiple deals that will happen in succession because the end state is not even known to the client. And a lot of time the experimentation happens and the iteration happens between the client and the service provider to arrive at as to what is the right target state that they had to aim for. And hence, it is very difficult always to determine that what is going to be my next set of wins 1 quarter or 2 quarter down the line. Earlier, it was more predictable. It is now less predictable. But most of the time, while it is unpredictable, it is surprisingly good that when you see the deals coming in and the cycle time to close that deal is much, much shorter now.
Yeah. So you obviously had strong deal wins across all your focus industries. The pipeline was looking strong as well. Have you built on to that? Again, I don't want numbers because you're not done with your quarter. We'll talk about this when your quarter results come out.
Yeah,
But broadly, the color. Have you been able to build on what you did in the end of quarter three, or has Q4
absolutely.
been slightly
No,
iffy?
correct. Absolutely. I think if you look at, we continue to build our view towards becoming a business ready platform company. I talked about at the end of the quarter and even in the previous quarter also that how we became from a known ERP company to ERP support and implementation company to an enterprise, a digital company, and moving forward, how we are looking at supporting the tech and data sector and becoming a business ready platform company. So we are moving rapidly in that direction because I think those are the services that are going to give us the maximum revenue in the future. They are already really growing at a much higher rate. And that sector, when I talked about, we called that out and we said that we need a different way to really support the organization and the industries who are focused on the technology side. And I think that is really providing us the benefits. So whether it is the med tech or whether it is manufacturing tech or it is in high tech or it is media tech, all that is really creating good momentum and good acceleration for growing in that direction.
Hmm. The other issue that I think some of the companies are grappling with, and I haven't found a very clear answer, to be honest, Mr. Kapoor. So I would love to understand if it is. I mean, there is a clear answer. Everybody's asking companies as to how do they propose to find ways to leverage the digitalization trend and increase the competitive scale at a point of time wherein the employee churn seems to be very high. Nobody's saying that you will not find employees, but a set of employees that you've trained in your mode suddenly get good offers, they move somewhere, you get people from somewhere else, but again the upskilling part has to restart again. How difficult is this proving to be?
It is difficult. There is no doubt about it because you end up reskilling, upskilling a person, and that person definitely becomes more valuable in the market. So it is a known fact, but I don't think that we can say that we will not train our people
Of
or we
course.
will not upskill our people because we are in an ecosystem where if I am training and upskilling someone, somebody else is benefiting, and if somebody else is upskilling, I'm taking that benefit also. I think as an industry, I don't think that we have to become selfish when we have to think about spending our dollars on training and upskilling our people. We have to continue to do that because it is so very important for our people. Because if we do not spend that money, we will lose people anyway. So I think that is one thing that we have to continue to look at. What we need to look at is that most of the time we have been hiring and then training people. I think the time has come when we had to train and then hire people. That would mean that we have to shift left when it comes to really picking up the talent from the colleges. And we need to get our own supply chain done very well because it is high time where we think that when I get the opportunity, I will start building the talent and I know that there is enough in the market and I can go and hire. There is not enough in the market, this time has shown. So this is the time for us to think how do we transform ourselves so that we are able to really focus on the colleges and the talent when it is there. And the colleges have to and the universities have to start collaborating much better with the industry. So I think it is going to bring the both of them closer to each other because they are going to help each other improve the level of maturity with which the talent is created or talent is hired or talent is consumed. So that, in my opinion, has to change. That equation is already set into the motion. We have started working with some of the colleges where we are going and telling that why not your year fourth be done along with my company? And I train people on the technologies and the skills that I need for them to be productive. Okay. So I will start investing along with them in order to upskill the talent at that point of time so that by the time they join me, they are ready for that. Okay.
Wow.
So I think that is how we have to start thinking. And I believe that while the challenge is there, such challenges are always good because they help you take a pause and to think very differently. They can help you reimagine the process that is being followed for many years, but no real transformation happening. I think this is a time when there is a real transformation that is happening in the talent supply chain side also.
Wow, interesting times, and would be lovely to see how the industry comes up trumps 2 to 3 years out from now in what looks to be a slightly changed model. Would be lovely to explore this a bit more, Mr. Kapoor.
So absolutely, I think IT industry in India is very, very resilient, and I am very confident that this will be again a winning moment for us in the future because it is wrong to be a frog in the well. Okay, I think it is very good that we have been thrown in a hot water and not in the cold water, which is slowly going to boil. So I'm very happy with this situation.
Okay, I'm running paucity of time because I know you run. But one quick last piece, and then of course we'll talk about. I presume business is looking good for the rest of the year, Mr. Kapoor. I'm not
Oh,
dwelling too much
absolutely.
on that. It is
Oh,
looking good.
absolutely. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
great. In which case, I have one final question, Mr. Kapoor. Um, uh, Piyush Goyal had put out a tweet sometime back, about a month and a half away, if I'm not wrong, that he foresees IT services from India to maybe reach $1 trillion by the end of this decade. That would be a 4x jump, near 4x jump or thereabouts, right? My question is, uh, do you reckon all and sundry, every good firm will be able to grab an equal pie out of this growth? Or as happens in some other industries, which are not necessarily people intensive, that the smaller firms do grow at a faster clip because of the low base than the larger firms, but they are not people intensive. So in your case, because talent is ubiquitous and kind of goes across in equal fashion, would the growth rates be similar? Why or why not? Can you spend a little bit of time here before we let you go?
So first of all, I definitely believe that the potential that the Indian IT industry has to become $1 trillion industry, that is the real potential. I have absolutely no doubt about that for simple reason that we have seen such kind of momentum and growth before as well. So IT industry definitely is poised for reaching to that goal. I'm sure that there will be a few entities who will have to work together. As I was answering in my previous question, that we have been thrown into the hot water that will make us think very, very different. So be it the government agencies, okay, be it the regulatory agencies or the technology industry, and the most importantly, the technology consumers, they all will have to work together in order to really go and gun for that. The good news also is that the IT industry in India, or let me say that the IT consumers in India has become far more aware and they see an urgent need of technology intervention because they also believe that they are no more a local company at India level. They are also becoming more and more global, and there are more global players that are coming who can disrupt them. So they believe that they also need to adopt the technology because they also want to survive and then thrive in the same ecosystem. So that is on that side. Now, coming to the larger companies and the smaller companies, I believe that first of all, everybody is in a good, comfortable situation with respect to the demand that is hitting our way. But what we have to look at is the narrative that was there 10 years back has changed after the pandemic. Okay, I'm hoping that the pandemic is over, though I know that there are, still the questions about that. But I will still say that today it is a post-pandemic era. But the whole narrative has changed. If it was about cost reduction in those 10, 15 years that the clients wanted to outsource and wanted to do things at the lower price point, if that was the narrative at that time, today that is not the narrative. Today, what client is asking is, how can you shorten my time to market? How can you get me a particular capability much, much faster and much, much better way rather than a cheaper way? So I think when the narrative is changing, the clients need a player which is far more nimble and agile. They want to experiment with someone who is able to listen to them and is able to respond to them. And I think I take pride in always saying that the Birlasoft is one company who takes pride in saying that we listen and we respond very, very quickly. And I believe that that is something that is very, very important for any smaller IT company, because that is how they get recognized in the eyes of the customers. The customers are not sure about the target state that they want to achieve when it is all about digitalization. They also know that they have to do the experimentation, and they believe that the smaller players are far more flexible in order for them to work together to experiment, to iterate, and to determine on the way as to how can they reach to the target state collectively, rather than having all the chips on the table and then start performing. So from that perspective, I believe the smaller companies definitely have an advantage.
Okay. So one last question before we wrap up. I have a minute. Mr. Kapoor, so are you saying that if Indian IT was earlier viewed as the alternative to high cost outsourcing, and we have to admit that at some point of time, cost arbitrage played a big part in the growth, you are saying that now that is no longer the case. The cost arbitrage will not help Indian IT. What will help is delivery, and firms are already recognizing that because Indian IT is already up to that speed.
Absolutely. And sooner we recognize that, the better it would be for us. And I'm not talking about for the companies alone. I'm talking about the individual software engineers, IT engineers, and the technology engineers, because it is not that the company is on one plane and the individuals are on the another plane, okay? Because if we have to continue to remain relevant in our career, we need to continue to upskill ourselves. We need to continue to determine as to what is the expectation that client is putting in front of me. I think that is going to bring growth for individual. And I'm taking the discussion with a lot of individuals when this whole debate about work from home and work from office is happening. Okay. And I'm so excited about so many of our employees coming and saying that, while it is good to work from home, but I believe that if I have to grow, and if I have to learn something new, and if I need my promotion in my career, if I have to look up in my career, I will have to step out of my home and actually interact with people, work with people, so that I am able to grow myself, grow my personality much, much faster. And I think that is a very, very positive discussion that I continue to have with our employees. And I am sure that this is a discussion that is happening in most of the companies, and I think this is going to set a new method of providing the work, okay? So that we can very clearly identify what environment is suitable to what kind of people, and how do we provide them in a much better way so that they are far more productive going forward. I think that is what is going to shift the way the IT industry looks probably 2 or 3 years down the line.
Inshallah, as they say, and maybe moonlighting is a thing of the past,
Absolutely.
Mr. Kapoor. But lovely talking to you, and we'll talk to you post the end of your Q4 numbers to get a better sense of the numbers as well, Mr. Kapoor. Thank you so much for speaking to us today.
Definitely. Thank you, Neeraj. Always great talking to you.
Thank you. Mr. Kapoor,